Cat Neville's with us each and every week. Feast Magazine. A couple of restaurants here in a second, all sponsored by our friends at Jimmy's on the Park, 7 to 6 to Munn in Clayton, 725-8585, or their website, jimmyscafe.com. Every Sunday and now every Monday, Jimmy features a 3-course meal for how much? $25. That's addition to their full menu from 4 to 9. Jimmy's Cafe. Find out more at jimmyscafe.com. Good morning, Cat Neville.
Good morning.
Let's get right to your restaurants because we got a lot to get to.
Okay, so the March issue of Feast Magazine is now on the streets, and it is our first annual Chef's issue.
Yes.
And what we're doing with this issue is kind of examining what it means to be a chef in St. Louis. A lot of people talk about the industry, or they'll talk about individual restaurants, but they don't necessarily talk about what it means to actually work as a chef.
Right.
And so one of the pieces that we did is we asked a lot of the kind of top, restaurant owners and executive chefs in town, who are your right-hand guys and gals? Like, who are the people that you can't live without?
Right.
So we did a round table with them. We also did a piece profiling Ben Paremba, who is like opening up a bunch of amazing places like Elia and Olio, and he's about to open Old Standard, which is a new fried chicken joint. And then we also did a piece on Element, which is a restaurant on the edge of Lafayette Square. And what Brian Hardesty, who is the executive chef, has done is he has decided to essentially run his kitchen by committee. And so he is the executive chef, but what he's done is he's brought on 5 other chefs to work with him in a very collaborative way to develop the menu. So each chef brings up ideas for dishes, whether it be appetizers, salads, entrees, all this kind of stuff. And then each of the other chefs kind of put in their ideas to modify, change, and enhance the dish based on their culinary experience. And so it's a very unique way to develop a menu and run a kitchen.
It's really interesting because it could be a recipe for disaster if it doesn't work right.
It could be, but the way that Brian sees it, he's like, typically it's the executive chef that gets all the glory, that gets all of the attention, and really every single person in the kitchen is necessary to the success of the restaurant. And we interviewed him for Feast TV, and he said, all these guys could take my place, and that's really the way that it should be. It's like all the different cogs in the wheel need to be just as strong. So, for example, there's this one dish that I recently had, which is a fried oyster dish. And it started out, and I'll show you this illustration off the air. I'll give you the magazine. But our art director, Lisa Allen, did a really nice job illustrating this. So the initial idea was that they would take oysters and fry those in duck fat, and then have a tomatillo relish. But then when they put this dish up and tasted it, they decided that it needed a little bit of a smoked flavor, and it needed some tang, and they were thinking maybe it should be some barbecue sauce. They're like, no, maybe let's do some barbecue spice. And then they decided to take that tomatillo relish. They didn't like the texture of it. They changed it to a tomatillo aioli, and aioli is kind of like a man.
To me, but keep going because it's awesome.
So a tomatillo is, when you have in Mexican cuisine,
right.
In particular, it's almost like little tiny green tomatoes that have a papery husk on the outside.
Okay.
They have a little bit they're mild, and they have something of a sour flavor and a little bit of a crunch to it. So they said it needed more heat and acidity, so they added in some pickled apples and some chorizo, and then again they changed it to that. They kept the tomatillo, but they made it a tomatillo aioli. And so that kind of gives you an idea of how they start off with one dish,
right,
and then it evolves to where it ends up being on the menu. It's really, really interesting. And it was a delicious, fantastic dish.
Where is Element?
So if you know where the old city hospital is,
yes,
that big, right by Fields Foods, that Walgreens right off of 55 on the edge of Lafayette Square.
Yes. Element
is in the power plant behind the city hospital, and the address is 1419 Carroll Street. But essentially, if you need kind of a landmark, it is behind that city hospital.
Yeah, Truman Parkway. It's at the end of the beginning of Truman Parkway there.
Yeah, and it's on the second and third floors, so it doesn't have a street presence. What's on the first floor is a climbing gym. So you kind of walk in, and then you need to go
you
to
have to climb up to the second floor.
You need to get on the elevator and take it up to the second floor, and
Right.
that's where the dining room is.
Element is what would you call the food there? Is it an American cuisine? Is it
By design, it's very eclectic. I mean, modern American food is eclectic.
Right.
You know, it's very ingredient driven. And it's very seasonally driven. Their menu changes all the time, and it
Right.
has everything from fried oysters
it's
to
got a little
root
bit of
vegetable
everything.
salads.
So it's got a little Mexican, a little Italian, a little this, a
Well,
little
but
that.
it's not Mexican. It really is in the sense of new American food is by default something like fusion food.
Right.
It kind of really just it's
kinda
very
like an
seasonally.
American.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
very
sort of
seasonally driven.
A little bit of everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right.
It's very exciting, and I'm thrilled to see Brian experiment with the way that kitchens are kind of put together.
1419 Carroll Street, Element Restaurant. Check it out, and then it's in the pages of the March issue of
Yes,
Feast.
correct.
All right, what's number 2?
So number 2 is a place that we talked about tea last week, and you guys were both mentioning how tea seems to be kind of on the upswing. And the London Tea Room operated for a number of years, I think 7 years, down on Washington Avenue downtown.
Yeah.
And they've recently relocated to 3128 Morganford in Tower Grove South. And they're in the old Hyde Park Beer Building. And they now they've made their lunch menu. So now they're serving savory quiche, some soups, and then a lot of pastries. And they're focusing more on their teas. They're really putting the effort toward the tea. They now also have the Hyde Park room for events. They also serve high tea, which for high tea you get all the great finger sandwiches
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. It's by reservation only. They offer over 80 loose teas. A lot of them are organic and fair trade by the pound. And then they also do a lot of tea education. And so, tea is we were talking about this last week, is this humongous subject. I mean,
Right.
It's way beyond black tea and green tea.
Right.
There is so much that is to be learned. So they do everything from Tea 101 for people that are novices. They teach you how to brew tea correctly, what different teas taste like. And then they also have classes like Tea Rarity, where there's one tea that you get to taste called the Drunken Concubine, which you got to have fun with tea, right?
Yes.
And,
or have fun with the Drunken Concubine.
Yeah, well, see, and no comment. And it's actually a very rare oolong tea that has like these notes of honeysuckle and things like that. So their mission is to educate you about the world of tea. Tea is just an ancient beverage. It's extremely good for you,
Right.
and it's very nuanced. And it's exciting to see them really be able to grow in their new location.
I like the fact that everybody there wears T-shirts. Thank you.
They actually do have something that's called a T-shirt.
They were on Washington Avenue. I
Yes.
used to live right across the street from them.
Yeah.
The owners are about as sweet
yes.
people as you will ever find.
With a fantastic British sense of humor, which
Yes.
is my favorite type of humor.
Yes.
So
They also ran a furniture store for
Yes.
a while, and I purchased a couple of items from them. They're the sweetest people in the world. And they've moved from downtown to Morganford, and
Yep.
I do know that women love to go. They used to love to go to the tea room and have a coffee clatch and have a coffee or a tea clatch.
tea clatch, yeah.
And sit and chat. And, I mean, you'd walk by this thing morning, noon, and night,
Mm-hmm.
and people would go and, like a coffee shop, it would be a tea shop, and they'd
Yeah.
go and bring their strollers and their boyfriends and their bags of shoes. Or I'm totally being sexist here, but you know what I mean.
Well, I mean,
it was
but
a great place to go to sit and have a great conversation with a friend.
Definitely, and that's one of the things that tea offers us. It's a chance to slow down. It's meant to be something that is thoughtful. I mean, tea is beautiful. Number one, just the leaves, the way that they're dried, and when you really start looking at the different types of tea and the way that tea and herbs and flowers and spices, the way that they can all be blended to create these beverages, it really is something that, in a way, it forces you to slow down,
Right.
pay attention, and then, and over a cup of tea, talk to people, actually have a conversation.
Quickly, you said it was by appointment only?
No, for high tea.
Oh, for high tea.
For reservation only,
Okay.
the high tea.
Got it. The
Yep.
London Tea Room, 1328 Morganford, and then the Element, which is at 1419 Carroll Street.
Yes.
In Lafayette Square there over by Soulard. Quickly, Feast Magazine is on the newsstands.
We are on the newsstands. It is our the March issue, and it's absolutely gorgeous. There is a dish from Olio is on the cover. It's beautiful. I want to let you know we are hosting The Taste of Fiction, which is this Friday, at the Central Library. And all of these amazing pastry chefs have been tasked with coming up with these pastries and cakes and things like that that are all inspired by works of fiction. And I think the Friday event is sold out, but on Saturday, Miss Robbie from Sweetie Pies is going to be at the library, and you can still go in and see those cakes. So the library is an invaluable resource.
The one downtown, the new one downtown?
Okay. It's an invaluable resource for St. Louis, not just the downtown library, but the entire library system. And so all of this supports
I was at the library last night on Lindbergh, and it was packed. FeastSTL.com for all the information.
That's exactly right.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Kat Neville with Feast Magazine, sponsored by Bertarelli Cutlery. Bertarelli Cutlery has been keeping St. Louis sharp since 1967. That's 46 years. 46 years? How old am I? Am I 46 or 47? Bertarelli Cutlery is your one-stop shop for knife and tool sharpening, along with all of your kitchen supplies. Visit them 1927 Marconi on the Hill or at BertarelliCutlery.com.